And here we go. So just in terms of background on this particular webinar, and thanks everyone for your interest. I think there was 39 people registered, and we've got quite a few online right now. I did a webinar about 6 months ago for a bunch of CEOs at Invest Ottawa on partnering, and it was really well received. And as I was thinking about some content that I wanted to push out to the folks that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, I thought I'd maybe do it again because it was well received, but at the same time, add a little bit of tactical and real life experience to it outside of mine, which is, bring someone in that actually has experience growing, starting from scratch and growing partner strategies. And so that's Toby. And Toby and I have known each other for a little over 20 years, more socially than from a business perspective. I think Toby and I first met each other when we were playing Ultimate back in the day. But I've certainly got a lot of respect for Toby and his leadership capabilities on the channel side. Heard some great things, and a common friend suggested him. And so Toby's going to join us here for this particular session, and we'll get into our backgrounds in just a second. But what I want to do is I just want to set a couple of expectations. So really this session here is about sharing. There's no real agenda. My company, yes, we do some go-to-market consulting. I'm more and more, I'm spending time on leadership development and teaching a system called EOS. So there's not really going to be a call to action afterwards. We're not trying to, quote unquote, sell anything. We just want to share, right? And so that's the main thing that we want to get across. And any question is a good question. Oh, and we're going to be tight on time. So what we've done is we've structured this as kind of a fireside chat, and we will have room at the end for Q&A. But we shall see. We're going to be tight for time. So bear with us as I specifically am going to be talking quickly through a couple things here. So in terms of background, for those of you that don't know me, I've been in the Ottawa high-tech community for about 30 years. And I've carried a bag. It's been primarily in sales and marketing functions and roles. I've carried a bag. I've been a salesperson in the channel, in the partner community. I've been a VP of sales across 4 different organizations, 3 startups and 1 mature organization. There was a company called TrialStat, which was a SaaS solution for clinical drug trials. There was a company called Titus, who you may have heard of, the decent sized organization here in Ottawa. I was their VP of sales for about 5 years, and they just recently have been acquired. I think they took on some private equity a couple of years before that. Decent size investment, about 100 million. Cloudlink, I was the VP of sales, and we got acquired by actually a partner. I'll get into that in a second. And then most recently, before starting Bytown Ventures, I was the VP of sales of a company called 4Point, and ultimately was the CEO for a period of time, which was a big Adobe channel partner. So got lots of experience in the partner stratosphere, but I'm not going to lie to you, I've struggled with it. I've struggled with it as a VP of sales specifically because you give up a lot of control when you are going down the partner path. And being a type A salesperson, sales leader, I would often be challenged by some of the partner scenarios that were in front of me, made some mistakes, but also have hit some major home runs through the partner community. So I want to share that with you guys today. And over to you, Toby. Why don't you just give a brief intro to you and your background?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be talking about a subject I'm quite passionate about, actually, and have spent my entire career since actually 97. I've been toiling in the channel, formulating partnerships for startups based here in Ottawa and for international firms, and had run as VP of sales, channel and direct elements. For one reason or another, found my passion on the channel side, and after an exit with a company in town called AutoSkill, actually spent the next 7 years, I think, as a consultant to small ed tech startups who are looking for their first path to revenue through partnerships. And so I advised, I think, pretty close to 10 different startups on how to find revenue through partners. in that 7 years. Super fun. Tiny little shops, some 100-person shops who had funding, but it was an awful lot of fun. Tons of lessons learned there, and certainly some methodologies for starting partner programs from scratch, which is something that I started to leverage after I wrapped that solo practice up. And spent some time at a Wesley Clover startup called AirVM in town, built a partner program there from scratch. Had a ton of fun there playing in the IT channel with distributors and international push. So it was an awful lot of fun at AirVM. And I've landed over the course of the last 11 months. I've been playing the role to help build the channel program at Field Effect, and feel very, very lucky to have landed at such an amazing organization. Super passionate about building channel for this company and driving cybersecurity initiatives, things of that nature. So yeah, that's a quick background on me, Scott.
Thanks, Toby, and thanks to Field Effect for lending out for an hour here. So what we're going to do next is we're just going to be a little interactive. So what I want you to do, if you're at a browser, folks, if you're not at a browser, I saw some phones. If you're not at a browser, then that's not a problem. But go to menti.com and use the code 720497. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share another screen now. Which is just a little fun little interactive kind of polling system that will give us a better idea of who you are. So if you go to menti.com, use the code 720497, just type in from your perspective, like kind of from what perspective did this particular webinar interest you at? So just give this a couple of seconds here to get some feedback. Good. This gives us a good example or a good idea of who is in the room, so we can sort of tailor some of our Q&A. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to move on to the next. We do have another Mentimeter that I'm going to run you through real quick. And that's just partnering issues. So if you can just go to, hopefully it's showing on your screen now, the next slide. And basically it's a word cloud. So what you're able to do now is just insert questions that you have or one-word statements that you struggle with from a partnering perspective. And maybe someone could take themselves off mute and let me know if they see this. There we go. Okay. So we're starting to see some stuff here. Let's give it a couple of seconds. All right. And by the way, the words that are larger, so strategy is one of the larger words, that means someone's put that in more than once. Internal buy-in seems to be a frequent choice. And then we've got some other, and so the good news is Toby and I have talked a little bit about the content here, and I think we're going to cover off on a decent amount of these things. And that's good. That gives me a good idea of what you're looking for. And again, we'll keep this and we'll come back to this a little bit later. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint slideshow. And here we go. So here's our agenda. I want to tell you a few stories. I want to provide some highlights on some successes in the channel, whether it's as part of a channel partner or whether it's been leading an organization that has a channel strategy. So we're going to do that. Speak quickly to why you would partner, why wouldn't you partner, and then most of the time today, and I'm just doing a quick time chat. It's at 12:15. Most of the time today it will be a fireside chat with Toby, and then we'll wrap it up with some lessons learned and some Q&A. So here's a couple of stories for you. For those of you that are from Ottawa, I know that there's not everyone from Ottawa. There's a client of mine from Denver actually on the phone, and some folks from Montreal and Toronto. But back in the 90s, there was a big controversy. And the controversy was the Department of National Defense went out and acquired the Microsoft Office suite. And at the time, an Ottawa-based company, Corel, had purchased WordPerfect. And so there was a big outcry because essentially, a Canadian, entity, an Ottawa-based entity went out and they purchased a US based solution. And I can tell you, I have firsthand knowledge, firsthand experience on this particular file because I was the sales executive that was representing the channel partner that was representing Microsoft that won this particular tender. And in my humble opinion, the reason why Microsoft won this tender, and actually it's not only my opinion, we did a forensic post-mortem on this, and we know this to be true, is Microsoft has a channel strategy where they have to actually work with partners, and they chose us as their partner. And we were a Canadian version of what the Americans call Beltway bandits. So we understood the federal government's procurement processes inside and out, backwards and forwards. We knew every single term and condition and what it meant. And so they partnered with us. And when we saw the specification for the Office Automation Suite, we noted that the training component of this particular specification was so loose that you could drive a truck through it. And so when we noted that, our strategy, our bid strategy, was to make sure that we were very, very cost competitive on the training component, because we knew that there was really nothing that the Crown could do to hold our feet to the fire if we came out with a deliverable that was maybe quote unquote substandard. That's just the way the government purchases things. The rules are the rules. And so that was our strategy. Corel, who primed this particular bid, did not note that. They did not partner in this particular scenario. And so what ended up happening was our bid was actually much less than Corel's bid. And the reason for that was our training offering was millions of dollars less than Corel's. Now, that was that fair to Corel? I mean, you could argue whether it was or it wasn't, but I'm just trying to sort of tell a story about how Microsoft, using a partner in this particular instance, that partner added value, and then ultimately Microsoft won the business. So that's one quick story I'll tell you. The next story that I'll tell you is when I was the VP of Sales at Tobys. As I mentioned earlier, I struggled with partnerships. There were times where I would sign up distributors and give them a big discount, only to be introduced, have the distributor introduce my competition into an account, only to see very little traction with the distributor, so on and so forth. But I'll never forget, there was one particular day I was sitting at my desk and I received a call from a distributor, and their systems engineer happened to be in an IT security planning session with Lloyd's of London. And it was a full day session. And he called me really excitedly at lunch and he said, listen, Scott, they're talking about a requirement that I think your solution fits to a T. And it was an email classification and document classification requirement, but they haven't identified any vendors. I think you guys would be a great fit. And I think I can get you on the agenda for this afternoon. Can you guys turn on a dime and put together a quick demo for, let's say, 3 o'clock this afternoon? And we did that, and lo and behold, it took a couple of years, unfortunately, but within a couple of years, they contracted for our solution right across the entire enterprise, and they ended up becoming a co-presenter with us at InfoSec Europe, which was a huge validation point for us. So again, if I didn't have this particular distributor as a partner, I never would have been in that situation. And then the third success story that I want to speak to quickly is just the experience at Cloudlink. At Cloudlink, we had a solution for the encryption of network attached storage. And we were asked to join the EMC Select program. And the EMC Select program was their partner strategy for getting point solutions into place that dealt with gaps, product gaps, and encryption of network attack storage was a product gap. So we filled that gap. The business that we got out of that partnership was okay. Like, I think we probably got $300,000-$400,000 worth of business out of the partnership. But based on an expectation of about $1 million in the first year, it was a bit of a letdown. But what ended up happening is EMC did invest in us. So they were a $3 million partner and a $6 million Series A. And then they ultimately acquired us. And so again, just three quick success stories on partnerships. Plenty of train wrecks though. Plenty of train wrecks. You know, I could tell you, I'll tell you one, and I don't want to name any company names, but when I was a VP of sales at a particular organization, we had a partner who we had an exclusive arrangement with. That was this particular arrangement was renegotiated every year, and we had the right on a yearly basis to take away their exclusive. And at a certain point in our relationship, we decided to take away their exclusive. And when we did, amazingly, some of our source code found its way into our competition's product. And so there was a lawsuit afterwards, which we ended up winning. So, you know, there's stories like that out there. So there's trust and confidence and relationships are such a key part of partnerships. So I just wanted to share those with you. Now, just at a high level, why would you partner? You know, let's go back to basics. You would partner in order to scale your business. You know how long it takes to hire salespeople. This is the quickest way to scale your business. So that's one reason. You would partner to have access to markets that you may not have access to today. When we were going out to Europe with Tobys, we basically you know, did not have access to all these markets without partners, and so that's how we got there. We sold our solution to the United States Air Force, and that was the only way to get into the United States Air Force or Central Command, which was the warfighters in Afghanistan and Iraq, was through partnership. So you can get access to markets. That's another reason. Speed to market. It might take you, you know, 3-4 years to get in front of Lloyd's of London to be able to present in one of their planning sessions. Well, you know, we were able to do it in an afternoon in this particular instance. So that's an example. Access to technology. You may have a solution that is not feature complete, and so you may want to complete it with components of another solution. Again, some countries or segments just don't do business direct, and that's been my experience in Europe specifically, where you do need to go in with a partner. An ecosystem leader that you're following has a partner strategy, and quite a bit of experience with Microsoft in my career. And Microsoft had a channel only partner approach. So when I was part of an ISV, so I was with a company called Fastlane, where we were an independent software vendor for Microsoft, because which bolted onto Microsoft. We had a solution for Active Directory migration. We needed to have a partner strategy because Microsoft went with partners, and so we just need to follow in kind. And then the last, you know, reason why you might want to partner is PR. So every time you sign up a partner, you know, joint press release, and get your name and get your value propositions, you know, statement out there every single time. In my experience, when you're hiring partners, when you're signing up partners, sometimes it's quantity over quality. So why wouldn't you? So I wouldn't partner if you don't have if every single transaction that you do is non-repeatable, right? So if every single transaction has a different buyer, it's a different problem that you're solving, it's a different price point, you're licensing it a different way. So you've got to have a repeatable sale. You got to have strategy work in place. So there's a number of different strategy approaches that I'm a big believer in. Roger Martin's Play to Win, strategic choices framework. I teach a system with EOS that is a strategy-based system. But if you're not able to articulate your vision and your strategy to your own salespeople, how would you expect to do that to a partner? So you got to make sure you've got strategy work. And in this particular scenario, this is Roger Martin's integrated cascade of choices. It's really in the where will we play, how will we win boxes, where you're going to be determining if and when you're going to be going down the partner path. Revenue. So if you are concerned about losing revenue, so whenever I did deals with Titus, they were typically 7-figure deals, but I would be giving up $200,000-300,000 to my distributor. And that $200,000 to $300,000 could have funded, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 really, really good developers, or 3 or 4, or maybe 1 or 2 really good senior salespeople. And so, you know, you've got to be able to buffer your revenue requirement. And if every single penny counts, I would hesitate potentially. Control, I mentioned that earlier, loss of control on deals, not being able to answer the question when my CEO asked me where a deal was, because I had to pick up the phone and call my partner, who then had to pick up the phone and call their customer or prospect. That's a challenge. And then there's conflict. There's channel conflict, and then there's a conflict between your partner sales organization and your direct sales organization. And then the last thing is you've got to be committed to partners. And this is just a quick example. Titus did this, and this is actually after I had left the organization, but this shows a really, really strong commitment to partners, where they were all in on partners, and 100% of the business that they wrote was through partners. Now, that's not for the faint of heart, and I would not recommend that until you're at a certain stage within your organization, but you've got to be committed to partners. So with that, and you'll have to forgive me, I've been talking quickly. It's 12:27 already. I want to do a little fireside chat with Toby. And Toby, I have some questions here for you, and I want to ask you these questions, and you know, just give me your answer and your thoughts, right? And speak freely and openly, and hopefully there's some good nuggets in here for our audience. So, you know, first question for you is, what was it about partner strategy and execution that attracted you?
Well, so I have to say, I think, first of all, the companies that I've worked for so far, I've felt, well, first of all, that I'm really lucky to be working for them, because I really believed in their solutions. I believed that we were helping the end customer. And what attracted me to the partnering element actually was that we're helping the end customer, we were growing our business, and we were helping a partner grow their business. So there was almost 3 birds in play there, where we're helping grow our own business, helping grow a partner's business. And if you're able to add a revenue line to a partner, if you're able to win new customers together, there's a sense of loyalty and camaraderie that comes with winning in that way. So, I mean, I think from my perspective, it was a way to capitalize on the unbelievable products that I thought we had built, and build partnerships and help build businesses.
Would you say a partner sales leader like yourself is wired a little differently than maybe a direct sales leader, VP of sales, or direct salesperson?
I think yes. I would say that if you think about what a channel sales leader has to do, it's more akin to the tasks of a manager, a sales manager, than it is to a direct sales skill set. So if you think about it, you have to convince the partner that you're a valuable company to work with. You have to convince that partner to take your solutions to their customers. You have to incent them properly. You have to drive all kinds of education into that partner. So it is not, you know, the same set of skills that you would see in a direct salesperson, who's probably got some deep knowledge about your own solutions, probably some deep knowledge about the end customer, but not necessarily, you know, leveraging strategic skills that you might need to leverage as a sales manager.
Would you say, like on that note, right? So the direct sales and partner sales approaches, like what types of conflicts do you see direct salespeople and channel salespeople working together, you know, well on a regular basis? Have you seen conflict in the past? How do you mitigate some of that conflict, if there is any?
Yeah. So, and this is a different take, I think, probably, but I always look forward to my first conflict, and I'll tell you why. It's because it means finally we've got some coverage, right? So if I've got coverage, and I've got enough partners out there, then it should be that there's some natural conflict that's going to take place. If we've got a well identified end customer target and a well defined group of partners that service that end customer, conflict is a natural part. So the first conflict that I always look for is, can I build the channel to a point where there's enough partners to see a little bit of channel conflict. There's processes and mechanisms through channel management that you can put in place, like deal reg, that'll help minimize the impact of that. And then when it comes to direct and channel conflict, I can tell you, I can more often than not see how we've come out the better for those kinds of conflicts than ones that are detrimental. Now, the detrimental ones end up costing you business if you're both into an account and you don't know that the other one is in the account, and you lose face a bit with the end customer. Those are bad situations, and easily avoidable if you have good communications with your partners, easily avoidable if you've got clean deal registration processes, easily avoidable if there's transparency around these opportunities, if there's trust, right? So I think when partners start guarding their opportunities and direct starts guarding their opportunities, and then you both pop your heads above the surface in the same account, it's a failure well before that led to that point, and it just needs some structural, you have to address those structural issues around transparency and around controls.
Yeah, you said something there that I heard first from Doug Garn, who was a well-known VP of sales. A company called Quest Software purchased a company that I was a part of, Fastlane, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And his comment was always, conflict means coverage. He goes, it's a great problem to have. He goes, I love it. When I've got conflict, that means if I've got two people calling into an account, that means I got coverage. I'd rather have that problem than no one calling into the account, and I can solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes solving the problem, maybe you pay them both for a while, right?
Exactly.
I'm a big believer in overpaying initially. Comp plans change on a yearly basis, but if there's a bit of ambiguity, if there's a bit of gray, if there's a bit of conflict, pay the direct rep, pay the channel rep, pay the channel partner, and maybe you don't take as much home, but what you're doing is sowing the seed, right, for that particular deal.
Well, and I would just sort of add to that. I think that sort of evolution of direct and channel conflict is that you see an awful lot now where the direct teams are hunting for prospects that fit a profile, and when they find them, they are tagging a partner to bring with them into the opportunity. More often than not, there are elements of delivering a solution that you might not be best to own direct, right? Part of partnering is that you get to outsource elements of the business that you believe others can do better than you. And there are elements there where, as an example, if there's a heavy training component and you're not necessarily a trainer at the core of your business, you might be smart to just pull partners with you into every direct scenario. So you do now see an awful lot of certainly enterprise sales and others tagging partners on every direct deal. And actually the side note there is that more often than not, if you bring a partner a deal, he'll bring you multiple deals in return, right? So there's some trust and loyalty built through that process. So I often see direct now bringing partners with them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I've always been a big believer. I think this might be in my lessons learned. You got to feed the channel. Even if you bring them a deal at the 11th hour, you only do it once, but you need to get some excitement going. They're going to add some value. And you need to keep momentum going. If you're really fully vetted and fully committed to a partner strategy, right? You got to feed them at first, the same way sometimes you feed your new salespeople. nice warm leads to give them confidence and to get them going on things, right? If
Yeah.
you're still doing that in a year or two, then maybe there's a problem. Maybe there's a call that needs to happen. But yeah, I mean, and you mentioned something else, deal registration. What kind of system, like, do you have a system for deal registration? Do you have a methodology?
You know what? The deal reg process has changed from one organization to the other. There are a couple, probably there are a few best practices. Obviously, giving exclusives is not above board. So you really just have to be able to make these deal registrations transparent. Oftentimes there's deal registration mechanisms in partner portals that you can leverage. Just as long as your deal reg is clear, as long as the rules of engagement are clear. There's and there's a whole bunch of different flavors of that, like many different flavors of deal reg. But there's so many different ways that you can structure things, and all of it's easily Googleable. If you haven't had to deploy a deal reg process, there's a ton of resources out there that can point you in the right direction.
Gotcha. And on that note, I mean, let's say you are, and I believe you, how long have you been with Field Effect now, Toby?
Well, a grand total of 11 months, I think, almost a year. Yeah.
Okay. And you were brought on board to develop and grow the partner strategy at Field Effect.
Yep.
And is there, I'm a big believer in sales methodologies. I was a big Sandler guy when I was coming up. I've used Miller Hyman. I've used value selling. I teach a system now for running a company called EOS. Yeah, are there any channel framework or partner frameworks that you subscribe to?
Yeah, well, and yes, there are. And I think first and foremost, I like to listen to channel expertise. So there's a lot of resources available to folks if they want to learn about partnering, learn about channel. Learn about the IT channel in particular. There's a lot of resources out there for folks. We can certainly follow up with this group afterwards with a set of those resources. But in particular, I follow one gentleman by the name of Jay McBain from Forrester. He's their lead channel analyst for Forrester, and he's got a bunch of frameworks and models that he leverages and communicates and educates on in his work with Forrester. In particular, he's driving something, and I think it's becoming better adopted now, is something called a trifurcating channel model. It's a pretty fancy word for thinking of 3 different buckets for your flavors of partners. And one would be an influence channel, so folks that would provide credence and credibility to your solution, to your brand. Then there's a transactional channel, and that is a bucket of folks that are there to sort of help you sell. And I think there's one thing I wanted to come back to when we talk a little bit about revenue in a moment, because there is, I think, a misperception that channel partners are just there for selling, but there's a whole bunch more that you should be taking advantage of with these folks that we can touch on in a moment. But and then the third bucket, so transactional folks those are your resellers, your VARs, your MSPs, folks of that nature. Then the last bucket is a retention channel, and those are the partnerships that you form in order to retain your customers. And in particular, you might want to look to integrations as a prime example there, where if there's a widely adopted set of tools within your customer base, integrating with those tools will make it, I think, a lot easier for folks to stick with you in the long term. So looking at integration, system integrators, and even interestingly, there are shadow channels off on the side in that retention model that you can look at. So that I've been paying an awful lot of attention to Jay McBain at Forrester and his trifurcating channel model, and that's sort of as geeky as I'll get on the channel side when we get into those kinds of things. He's got also a bunch of other models that are really, really useful to help frame the way you think about developing a channel. So he walks through everything from your strategy and design. So that entails, your go-to-market. It entails your routes to market, your competitive analysis, your coverage mapping, your capacity planning, all of those kinds of elements, program design, communication. But he sort of lays it out quite nicely for you to understand, here's strategy and design, then driving into a recruitment phase and into an enablement phase and into a sort of an incent and motivate phase through all the way to co-selling and managing and reporting. So there's frameworks available out there. Check Jay McBain out to get a good feel for what some of those frameworks look like.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember, and I don't know if we were following the framework back in the day, because I was your quintessential. I was a direct sales. When I was carrying a bag, I was direct sales, although I'd work within partners. When I was leading sales teams, when I was a VP of sales, I often hired someone like you to run my channels, right? Because I just found that I wasn't wired the right way. But if I recall, there was a consistency where we would always go out and we would go with, we'd recruit quite a few partners initially, and then there would be a call, and we would call, it wouldn't be every year. It might even be every couple of years, but basically we would go from 3 distributors down to 2, or we would go from 15 resellers down to 10. Do you have any experience or any thoughts on sort of quantity over quality to start?
Yeah. You know what? Well, to start, here's I think the biggest advice would be don't spend too much time. I think what you want to do up front is make sure that your strategy is solid. But the only way to test that strategy is to actually go start doing stuff, right? And start talking to partners and seeing if there's a fit. So don't wait. If you're just kickstarting a channel or partnership program, just make sure that you're talking to as many of these folks as you can, gather their feedback. There's a ton of value in just early days talking to folks, and you can build the program while the plane's in flight, and you can build all the support mechanisms while the plane is in flight. It feels a little bit like a hair on fire, hence the gray and the bald, but it is without question something that you can drive to quite efficiently. But don't wait. I guess would be the first answer there. What was the question? Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
It just is that an approach to, and the approach is to go with quantity over quality, or is
gotcha.
Is that by design almost?
Yeah. So and here's what I would say about the quantity versus quality thing. I think channel sales aren't that much different from a direct when you look at the numbers. Like it's not uncommon to come across an 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of your revenue is going to be driven from 20% of your sales reps, or 80% of your revenue is going to be driven from 20% of your partners. Now, here's the thing about that rule. You can't dismiss the other 20% because it's 20%, right? Like it's important. It's an important 20%. And inside that 20%, there might be the next contributor to your 80%. So I think you really need to feed and nurture the channel in a way that allows you to approach all flavors of partners, whether they're contributing heavily to your revenues or not, right? And so I would say, quantity in the beginning for sure. Don't be distracted by folks that pull you off your core, because that's a real danger in the beginning. And I think if you can find a way to, in a scalable manner, continue to nurture a broad base of partners, you're better to go with quantity in the beginning. And as you say, if there's a requirement for a call down the road, fine. I always just say though that if you've got underperforming partners that are pulling you in directions that don't make sense for your business, you just have to be able to recognize that, right? And you have to start saying no to certain opportunities or certain directions.
But keep them on board and try and nurture them, right? And so what I'm hearing from you, and this makes a little bit more sense, is maybe not a cull. I mean, if there's a transgression that occurs and trust is lost, I think you got to make a change. Same way you would make a change with a direct salesperson that's working
100%,
for you.
yes.
But look at nurturing, the ones that aren't performing, keep them on board. That kind of dovetails into my next question. You know, what's your experience been on partner marketing? So
Yeah.
do you find that is are you able to take the marketing that is designed for your direct sales force and just copy that over, or is it unique or different in any way, like partner portals, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I would say this on partner marketing, it sort of fundamental to having any kind of marketing practice for channel is an understanding of sort of the two angles that you have to play with partner marketing. And that would be, first, that you have an audience that you're trying to attract. You're trying to attract partners. So you're attracting them with likely somewhat different language than you would, as an example, to your end customer. So what you end up with is a set of messages for your partners. So you would without question have a marketing methodology for attracting new partners to the company. Then beyond that, once they are with you, once they've signed a services agreement of some variety, a reseller agreement of some variety, then it's all about through partner marketing. So, and that is where you do things like canned campaigns in a box that you can rinse and repeat with one partner in one geography and another partner in another geography. And so that there's scale. Oftentimes, if you've got a direct practice, by the way, those through campaigns may well have been tested on the direct sales side within your organization. So you can take a single campaign on a particular topic that you believe is front and center to the issues that your customers are encountering and the problems that you're solving, and you can take that campaign and test it directly, tweak it, potentially run it a couple of times, do some A/B, see where it's most effective, then can it and make it available to the partner for rinse and repeat opportunity within their customer base. And I think one of the things that's really crucial here is that even when you're doing your through marketing, you need to fork again. You need to look at the partner's customer base. So one of the true values of partners is that they aggregate customers for you, right? They have a customer base. For the most part, they have a base of customers, and they may well be able to bring you 100 customers. They may have 1,000 customers. And so you want to be able to market into that customer base because it would likely be the lowest hanging fruit. So there's a customer base fork, and then there's a new partner or new customer acquisition fork, even within your through marketing, right? So you need to sort of make sure that you're incenting and that your language is proper for each of those. So you've sort of segmented into two partner marketing and through partner marketing, and then within through partner marketing, you're looking at their customer base and you're looking at new acquisition. So you have to be able to do those kinds of things with enough sophistication and speed that you can win customers at a good clip. So it's absolutely core and foundational to any channel practice is having good, solid partner marketing.
Okay. And last question before we get into lessons learned and open it up, because I want to make sure we do. I see a couple of questions here on the chat. We might have some from the audience. This is a question I get all the time. It's a really tactical question, but I'd like to get your take on it. What kind of discounts do you give? Do you have a tiered discounting system? And what types of partners do you have? And typically, what types of discounts would you give your partners?
Yeah. So this is a great question. And by the way, I think it's fundamental to a channel program structure is the discounts. But here's one of the mistakes I see made more commonly than just about any when building a partner program, is that it's positioned with the partner. This discount is positioned with the partner as a sales discount. For you to sell my product, I'm going to give you X% off the MSRP as a simple model. But the truth is that there's opportunity here for you to whittle that down just a little bit more and provide elements of discount for the outsourcing of certain responsibilities that you'd like to scale through that partner. So first of all, we did say that, let's say, hopefully they've got 1,000 customers of their own. What if we could, let's say, for a little bit of a steeper discount, so let's tag let's say, I don't know, 5 to 10% of a discount to a sales commission. And maybe you go 5 to 15%, it's a sliding scale. The more volume, the more discount. But then what if you could outsource all of the billing and invoicing? Well, I would value them receiving one invoice for their 1,000 customers from us, instead of us having to generate 1,000 invoices for those 1,000 customers. So there's value there. I would happily pay for that person to aggregate those invoices on my behalf. What if they could handle L1 support? If they could handle L1 support, I'd probably tag a little bit of discount to that support and say, if you handle all the L1, and we'll train and enable them to be able to handle the inbound for that kind of stuff. But that takes some load off of my support team. And if you do it with the right structure, yeah, I think you'd be happy to pay for a decreased volume and some free time for your own support team. So I would say the first thing I would say to the discount question is, don't just tag it to a sale, right? Tag it to the functions that you're outsourcing. And if I see a fundamental mistake that I see folks make in the early days, it's that they're saying, yes, 30%, 40%, 50%, and it's just tagged to the sale. If you want to get into deeper discounts, outsource elements of your business that you think will help you scale.
Gotcha. No, that's a great approach. But I'm going to go back to you, like, just generally speaking, do you have tiers, generally speaking?
Yes, generally speaking, tiers, generally speaking, those tiers are attached to whether or not I can outsource my L1 support, whether or not I can outsource my billing, how much investment they're going to make in sales and marketing and sales volumes. And so it can be anywhere from 10% to, if there's some form of guarantee in return, you can make those discounts pretty steep if you know that there's going to be something in return as a guarantee.
Gotcha. And keep in mind, we're talking software here, folks. I think there's a couple of companies on the line that aren't in that business. There's high margins in software. We're able to give away a little bit more in certain circumstances, but certainly understand and appreciate that you may not have those margins as well. But yeah, I was just curious. Okay, so let me just move on to just some lessons that I learned in 25 years of running sales organizations that were very partner oriented. So, from my perspective, it was quantity over quality at first. And again, that was just, my perspective. And it was specifically to a company that I worked for called Fastlane Technologies, where we had a solution that bolted onto Microsoft. Microsoft was a partner organization. And so we literally, I think we probably signed 150 to 200 partners in our first couple of years of business, because we had to scale quickly. And we had a solution that would get, customers from the old NT4 flat domain structure to Active Directory, which was a pretty hot kind of area. So that was one lesson that I learned. Not one size fits all, but just want to share that story with you. Stay away from exclusives at all costs. I told you the train wreck story. There's a lot of, when you're entering a new market, there's excitement, especially when you meet a partner that excites you, that you think will be able to bring you those 100 or 1,000 customers. They are always going to lean towards some sort of exclusive ask. Stay away from it. It's verboten. Try and work out some other aspects. I'm looking at my time here. I'm just going to rush through this. Trust is everything. Once you lose trust with a partner, in my opinion, it's time to move on. But trust does not happen overnight. So, and they've got to trust you too. The partner psyche is a different psyche than you as a vendor have, right? And so partner psyches, they are a little bit more emotional, a little bit more passionate about their business, and you got to be prepared to deal with that, and you got to be able to acknowledge that. It always takes longer than you think. Be prepared to feed your channel. If all they do is walk you into an ideal fit client at the right level so you can pitch and you can do all the selling, they've done their job, in my opinion. The rest is gravy. So that's worth the 15 to 20 to 25% discount. They've short-circuited a 2-year sales cycle potentially, or an 18-month sales cycle. They've gotten you in at the right level. You're still going to have to do all the selling initially, but they've earned their margins. So don't nickel and dime them. If in fact you end up doing 95% of the heavy lifting after they introduce you. Make the investment. So be prepared to overpay. And when I say overpay, it's not necessarily margins that you're going to give your partners, but make sure you don't create a bunch of conflict with your direct sales force over a period of time. Maybe pay them both, make it revenue neutral for your direct sales force. You want them, and then at some point, and again, I'm very upfront with my sales teams. Compensation is something we discuss every year, folks, right? But for this year, we're going to pay you both, right? And that's just a lesson that I learned. Instead of nickel and diming, again, you got to take a look at the big picture. Partnering is not for everyone. Don't partner just to partner. Don't partner because your board thinks you should partner. Don't partner because your investors think you should partner. You got to be prepared. Go back and look at that list that I provided. You got, first and foremost, you got to have that repeatable sale, right? You should actually have 6 to 12 repeatable sales before you hire your first salesperson. And the 6 to 12 usually are closed by the founder if you're a startup. So you need to be there first, and then you need to be humming. And then, but you know, as Toby says, get into partnering. As soon as you see that partner thing potentially going, then get on it quickly. And then this is something that I learned from one of my sales reps, a gentleman by the name of Sean Cruz. He had this attitude. Once he got in front of the partner, he would say, listen, you know, he'd be in Boston and he'd say, listen, I need you to get me into John Hancock, Fidelity, and you know, this insurance company, these 3 companies. And either you bring me in or watch me go in there directly or with another partner. And so there's an element of challenging your partners to get them to introduce you, and doing so in such a way that you're not offending the partner, but letting them know that, listen, if you don't bring me into these accounts, I'm going in anyways, right? And so those are some of the lessons that I've learned. It is 12:57. I've got a couple of questions here. I'm going to move to David Booker. David, what's a reasonable time frame from first connect with a prospect partner to signing up and gaining revenue traction? Toby, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, it really depends. And I can tell you that's one of the things that I experiment with when I'm getting something off the ground is, can I find a cold partner, not one from my own network? Can I find a cold partner, and how quickly can I get them into an MSA or an agreement of some variety, and then measure again how quickly I can get that partner into revenue? There is no typical, especially when you're starting from scratch, but I can tell you that it is something you want to measure. Can you get a cold partner from outside your network into an MSA? Measure it. Typically, if it takes longer than, you know, a couple of weeks to a month to get into an MSA, then there's a fit issue. And then from there, how structured and sophisticated are all of your materials to enable that partner to sell your solutions? Because that will dictate your time frame to land your first deal. So measure your time to revenue post signature, and make sure that you have got all of the enablement materials available to drive those partners, educate them about your sales cycle, educate them about your platform and solutions so that they're comfortable going to market. If you got that content nailed, your time to revenue will be much shorter. If you don't have that content nailed, it's going to be super long.
Okay, great. And you know what I would say, my answer to that, David, is sorry, it's a cliche, but it really depends, right? So at Titus, we had 3-year-long sales cycles. Unfortunately, we had lumpy business. But at Cloudlink, it was very transactional, especially near the end before we got acquired by EMC. And it was a couple of months to get the New York Police Department under contract through a partner. So it really does depend. But what I would say is if you take a look at it from like the MSA that Toby spoke to, right? How quickly can you get them under an agreement? That's one area. How quickly can you get in front of their sales organization to do sales training? And how quickly can you get some sort of joint lead, engagement sort of program going where you're working hand in hand? Those are the sort of 3 non-revenue specific things that I would start measuring.
I would also just point out, Scott, that if there's an opportunity, this is where that sort of bifurcation of new customer acquisition and current partner base or customer base. If you can go into the customer base, your sales cycle is going to be super short. So look for somebody with a healthy customer base that believes before you even sign them on an MSA that they can take you into their customer base successfully.
Okay, so moving on to Paul Wagner, and by the way, it's 1 o'clock. You guys can drop if you want. We got a couple more minutes here. We'll try and stay on.
Hmm.
Paul Wagner, when moving some of the core capabilities downstream through partnerships, like Toby mentioned, invoicing, L1 support,
Mhm.
how have you built a transparency and trust but verify model? What are the right verify models, SLAs or other?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really great question, Paul. And I will tell you that it is typically an SLA kind of model. So especially if what you're talking about is outsourcing some of your support. So those support structures need to be very cleanly articulated. They need to be very well defined. There can't be gray zones. They have to understand the escalation process. They have to understand when to escalate, when not to escalate, what falls into L1, what falls into L2. We're just using that sort of support model as an example, but clarity there is paramount. So SLAs with your partners, really, really good idea if you're going to be outsourcing key functions. And obviously the other element there is ensuring that there's really well educated and know sort of where their box ends and yours begins. So yes, typically those are done through SLAs, and oftentimes there is a reporting requirement to those. Okay, so you can, through a lot of integrations and different partnerships, you can definitely share data back and forth, especially when it comes to ticket data and support data, things of that nature. And depending on the partnership, you can structure those in a whole host of different ways.
Okay. Thanks, Toby. I don't have anything to add on that one. I don't have a whole lot of experience with some of those lumping things together for discount. Although that's a great approach and great idea. Probably most applicable to high volume scenarios, right? Where you see value in scaling your business out. Unfortunately,
even if there's elements of your business that you feel expertise within the partner is better than your own. Training is always a great example there. There might be really solid training resources available to you through partnership that you could outsource your training function, right?
Yeah. Okay, so Toby and Toby, I didn't talk to you about this, but I have until about 1:30 if need be. Why don't we just open and you can drop off or you can stay on if you got a bit of time, but let's just see if there are any questions that folks want to ask over the audio here. And so I'll just ask you to unmute and maybe ask your question if you do have one. And if we don't, that's fine. We're right up against the hour here.
Yeah. And if there are no questions, no issues at all. And Scott, I'll make sure to share some of those resources I was referring to, like the stuff from Forrester and a couple of other nuggets, so that we can share with the group after this.
Okay, perfect. All right. Oh, well, thanks very much for your time, folks. Hopefully there were some nuggets in here. There's no silver bullet, obviously, but hopefully there's some nuggets in here that you could take advantage of, and reach out to us if you have any questions. I'll make the recording available afterwards, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Scott. I enjoyed the chat.
Thanks, Toby. Thanks for participating.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Toby and Scott.